It's been an interesting few years for action cameras, with DJI releasing their first camera with a nice front-facing colour display to more budget-level competition with similar displays like the Akaso Brave 7, available at a fraction of the cost. But just like clockwork, it's time for GoPro to up the ante with their latest and greatest, conveniently named the GoPro Hero 9. GoPro's slogan for the Hero 9 launch is "More Everything," and truth be told, there really are enough new things here for that to feel fair. Not only have they squashed some of the negatives from the previous camera, they've improved on almost every aspect too. And that even starts with the package. Now wrapped in this handy carry and storage case, gone are the days of plastic packaging, which did make for a good storage container mind, and we are provided a nice hard shell carry case instead, held closed with a sturdy zipper. Don't get too excited though, the accessories are just as sparse as normal. A standard USB charging cable, a single curved adhesive mount along with an accompanying mounting buckle and thumb screw, and the unit's battery, which is larger in size, so no, your previous batteries won't work here, but we'll cover more on that shortly. For now though, here's the star of the show, the GoPro Hero 9. And the first major change is glaringly obvious, the 1.4-inch front-facing full-colour display. DJI may have got there first, but GoPro have finally caught up. In fact, it's pretty much the same size as the screen found on the DJI Osmo Action. It's not touch sensitive, it's too small for that anyway, but for general camera information and framing of shots, it's a very welcome and long overdue addition. Next to this though, GoPro have reintroduced the removable lens cover which it omitted from the Hero 8 Black. Whether you're replacing a cracked lens or adding an ND filter, this is a useful bonus, even if it can't exactly be considered a new feature. The reason for this is the introduction of a new Max Lens mod, which screws onto the Hero 9 Black's lens mount to give you a super wide field of view, and even stronger electronic stabilization, although it's unavailable as of yet. Anyway, a newly designed status LED and the front-facing microphone pretty much finish off the face, while the rest of the unit is pretty much the same as its predecessor. A large rubberized shutter button up the top, with its power and mode button on the side. Nothing new there, although this is new, not a door or anything you can open, but a cover that helps drain the microphone from water quicker after the camera has been submerged. On the bottom we find the standard GoPro finger mounting system, which worked wonderfully well with the Hero 8 and means no extra frame mount is required, along with the unit's speaker, while on the rear we have the signature GoPro touch sensitive display, which is now a slightly more larger 2.27 inches across. It's obviously still fairly compact compared to the one on your phone, but that extra real estate should make navigating the menus easier. Finally, we have the side door that can be unlatched to reveal the USB-C charging port and memory card slot, nothing new there, as well as a cavity for the included battery. Note the side door now includes a handy spring mechanism too, meaning you can simply push to close. A neat little addition. Anyway, back to that battery. Naturally, the new colour display in the front and the larger rear display come with greater battery demands, which is partly why GoPro has inflated the Hero 9 Black's battery too. At 1720 mAh, it's 40% bigger than the predecessors, which GoPro says leads to around 30% real-world improvement, although that may be slightly optimistic, but we'll see how it fares later. Still, this does mean the Hero 9 Black isn't backwards compatible with older GoPro batteries, as they're a different size, so you can't use older ones as spares. And the new design, which boosts its size and weight by about 10%, will also be too big for your old cases or housings too, so it means a new set of batteries all over again. Also note that the design changes of the Hero 9 Black means the camera itself is bigger and heavier than before. It's a subtle bump in size, but one that soon becomes apparent when you pick it up, especially if you have last year's camera in the other hand. In numerical terms, the Hero 9 is around 5 to 6 mm wider on each side compared to the Hero 8. And as for the weight, the new camera is over 30 grams heavier than the Hero 8. In fact, at 158 grams, the Hero 9 even outweighs the much larger GoPro Max. That extra heft is the trade-off for at least 3 of the new and most interesting features found on the Hero 9, the new front display, the larger rear display, and the higher capacity battery. With that removable lens cover, it's business as usual, with a rubberized finish and waterproofing down to 10 meters too. And that goes for the user interface too. Upon switching the camera on with a fully charged battery of course and stepping through the initial setup, we find a very familiar menu structure which has been tweaked and refined, making it even easier to use than before. Of course we have that front screen as well, which is surprisingly sharp, maybe a touch more so than the DJI Osmo Action, along with some options within the settings that allows two views. One which fills the entire front screen but zooms in and crops the image a little to do so, as well as a full screen mode where we'll get a smaller but a more complete image of what the camera sees, which I personally find more useful. You can even switch off the live feed to the front screen, handy for saving some extra battery power, or switch the screen off altogether, again saving more power for longer recording sessions. Also note that both the front and rear screens are active simultaneously, something not available on other cameras, meaning you can switch between recording yourself and then the action without having to change any menu options. Always very handy. Otherwise, when it comes to the user interface, we have all the normal swiping gestures that we've become accustomed to, so nothing new there. However, if we head into the video settings, you'll see some new options, namely scheduled capture, duration, and hindsight. As you might have guessed, scheduled capture allows you to set a time and date, and the GoPro will magically turn itself on and start recording. Duration simply lets you set a fixed time to record for. These two features can even be used in tandem. Say if you want to record the sunrise for 20 minutes, simply dial in the time you want it to start shooting, set the duration, and enjoy sleeping in. Hindsight is a little more interesting. When activated, it records for 30 seconds on a loop before you press the shutter button. So if you want to capture a moment, you can do so with a tap instead of just recording the whole time just in case. It's similar to the loop mode that already exists, but you won't need to start recording until there's something you know you want to capture. As with the Hero 8, if you are new to this type of menu system, it can be a little overwhelming to start with, but once you spend some time placing everything the way you want it, day-to-day usage becomes so much easier. Otherwise, the menu system is generally quite smooth and responsive. I did have the odd bit of stutter and the odd freeze, which GoPro should be refining with their next firmware update, but on the whole, it worked perfectly well. Of course, we still have the GoPro app too, and if you have an iOS device, you'll get a slightly better experience than before. Connecting to the app is just as easy as before, and after applying some outstanding firmware updates, again a rather seamless and simple experience, although do be prepared to wait a few minutes for it to be applied. We end up with that live view, and can remotely control the unit as well as change settings. Switching between different modes is refreshingly quick and easy too. It's a clear improvement as things just seem sleeker and smoother, which is a definite win. GoPro have always had a decent app over the competition, and that continues with their latest flagship. No problems here at all. And we keep those live stream features too, albeit sleeker and smoother than before. When it comes to performance though, finally GoPro has broken through that glass ceiling with a new 23.6 megapixel sensor. This is a big deal. Not only does the new sensor allow the Hero 9 to shoot in 5K, it offers up 20 megapixel photos too. This also represents the first time a GoPro has had a higher resolution sensor since probably the Hero 3 Black. All the GoPros since then have offered 4K and 12 megapixel stills in some form, so the Hero 9 really is an all-new camera in that sense, and it still shoots some of the best video and stills you can get from an action camera, although it isn't a huge upgrade over the Hero 8 Black when it comes to image quality alone. The new 5K 30 mode certainly captures more detail than any other GoPro flagship, particularly when you switch to the high 100 megabits per second bitrate mode. File sizes also aren't noticeably bigger thanks to the use of the efficient HEVC codec in some modes, although they can be very demanding on your computer. Out of the box though, the Hero 9 Black's footage can look more processed and over-sharpened, which is possibly down to some slightly more aggressive noise reduction. I also found that it has a greater tendency to overexpose bright scenes, particularly in the sky, compared to the Hero 8 Black. This may be fixed in a firmware update, but it's another example of other factors being more important to image quality than resolution. Still, you certainly won't be disappointed with the footage you can shoot on the Hero 9 Black, particularly in its 5K 30 mode. When it comes to image stabilization, HyperSmooth 3 works seriously well, but you'd be hard-pressed to tell a huge difference from the Hero 8, which also worked impressively well too. What I can say though is that when it's used alongside the new horizon leveling, a feature only available in linear mode, you end up with what I consider to be the ultimate combination. With linear and horizon leveling on, HyperSmooth really comes into its own for more conventional cinematic shots. The lack of lateral movement or angle turns, coupled with the smoothness from the stabilization, really do make for impressive establishing shots, scenic tours or run and gun vlogs. They work hand in hand exceptionally well and are my new go-to settings. Seriously, this time it is really like gimbal level performance. That aside, moving on, Time Warp 3 really only brings the ability to add a speed ramp during the middle of your video to briefly slow it down while adding some audio. It's a nice touch that fast tracks the editing process, but it's more of a firmware upgrade than a headline-worthy feature. Sadly, there are no real improvements to high frame rate shooting either. I'd have loved to have seen a 4K 120p mode for some crisp slow-mo footage, but that's still only possible at 2.7K resolutions or below, the same as on the Hero 8 and the Hero 7 Black. The Hero 9 Black does take some good quality slow-motion clips though that are great for breaking up your social media videos, but the usual rules apply. Like its predecessors, this is best done in bright sunlight, because from dusk the high ISOs will turn your clips into a noisy, smudgy mess. The new sensor also lets you shoot 20 megapixel still photos and grab 14.7 megapixel frames from your videos. While this does deliver a slight increase in detail over its predecessors, there isn't a major step up in the Hero 9 Black still photography. You get all the same options as before, the option to shoot in linear mode to correct wide angle distortion, plus super photo for regaining some highlight detail. In good light, the results are very good, with sharpness across the frame and crisp detail. All this extra power comes at a cost though, battery life. That said, you get a generous 500 more mAh to play with thanks to the larger battery, which in turn does increase the size of the camera too, a minor trade-off. It's always hard to put an exact number of minutes to the gain in milliamps because every mode and feature will drain the battery differently, but in a head-to-head at basic 1080p 30 with HyperSmooth switched off, I did find I'd get around an extra 25 minutes or so from the Hero 9, so GoPro's 30% extra battery life claim does seem to be roughly correct. And if you're looking for audio quality, it's good, but there's no marked improvement over the Hero 8 Black, so if you're after the best quality, you'll still want an external solution. So, as we would generally expect from a newer version, the Hero 9 predictably beats the Hero 8 across the board. But unlike previous iterations, the Hero 9 feels like one of the more robust updates of recent years. The new front display, the new sensor, higher resolution in tandem with some decent software like horizon leveling, hindsight, and scheduled capture to name a few, go a long way to making the Hero 9 feel like a very different camera. Don't get me wrong though, the Hero 8 Black has very similar image quality and is compatible with most of the same mod accessories and is a very solid performer. Even Hero 7 Black owners might consider it an unnecessary upgrade unless they need a front LCD for vlogging. There will likely be a few that aren't fond of the extra size and weight either, or the need to replace any camera-specific accessories if you're upgrading from an older model. The same goes for those with a stash of batteries, none of which will work in the new camera, so there are plenty of reasons not to upgrade if you have a Hero 7 or 8 already. That said, there are still plenty of reasons to like the Hero 9. New features such as hindsight, scheduled captures and even a webcam mode, the dual screen displays, and let's not forget that removable lens cover with a max lens mod available too, all go together to make this probably the best GoPro yet. Not everyone will benefit from the largest sensor and 5K video capture, but if you demand the best, then the GoPro Hero 9 continues to set the benchmark.